switch gears now, by the way. I'm going to teach you a little bit from the Bible in our series, Filters. How's that sound? I got all sorts of stuff to read you today. But I'm going to start with a story. I was living in Kansas City, and I was driving my mom's 1985 BMW. It was an M3. Red leather interior. This thing was awesome. I was 21, and if you didn't know 21-year-old me, 21-year-old me was way less responsible, way less mature, way less, I know it's hard to believe, probably less handsome, less muscular for sure. It was, and I was driving this car, and a little light goes on. This was not the check engine light. This was the oil pressure light. And so for those of you that didn't know, those are different. One of those is go get that light checked out. The other one is turn the car off. I didn't know, so I kept driving down the interstate, and the noise got louder and louder, and then the smoke started, and then I pulled off and got the car towed to the nearest auto body shop, and they started to drain the oil, and they found like metal shavings in the oil, in the oil, which means you're hosed. If you ever wonder you're done. The engine is done, because that means that the things where there should be oil lubricating and stopping them from rubbing together, that's not happening, and it's actually starting to eat each other up, and your engine is done. You can't like replace a thing. It's over. 1985, not even 100,000 miles. BMW M3i, red leather interior. That was the car I drove. I learned to drive stick in, and it was dead. And this is a time in my life, I was working part-time and going to school, that I didn't have any real money. Like, I didn't have any. You know, like I say that now, and it's like, well, that just means that my allowance for the month is out. Like, if there's an emergency, we can cover it. We're like adults. We have a savings account, and we have money that's set aside for things. And so if I'm like, I don't have any money to go out to eat, it's very different. But that point in my life, when I said I didn't have any money, there was the one bank account that was on like $1.14. And not only now was I late for school, but I was going to be late for school, and I wasn't going to get home. And this was one of those times in our lives that I wasn't like a little bit of help away from being able to make it through this, you know? This is obviously, no, my health is fine. I got a place to live. I'm in school. This isn't like the end of the world kind of a scenario. But when you're 21 and you live 40 minutes from your school, and you just like, it's a big deal. And my life, it isn't like something a little help would get there. Like, I just needed like a couple $100 to make it through, and I can pay you back. This is when my parents started calling themselves the helicopter parents, because my parents make pretty much a full-time job out of helping me, my two brothers, and my sister get out of jams like this. I was in Kansas City, and I didn't know a mechanic. I didn't know where to take the thing. Like, I couldn't afford a new car. I didn't even know what to do. It wasn't that I just needed help. I just had no idea, so I called my dad. And from Wisconsin, and my dad is like, he's not bad at technology, but this is 2007. And the internet is like new for him, like for all of us. Like, Google wasn't then what it is now. Like, I didn't have an iPhone yet. But from Wisconsin, he magically worked the Googles, and in a day and a half, he had he had a used engine put in my car, and I was like ready to go. He figured out the auto body, he figured out the tow, he was talking to the insurance, he figured everything out. I didn't have to do anything. Talk about awesome dad. And my dad's pretty great. If we could be honest, we'll be honest. My dad's really great. He's come through a lot with us. My dad was a rock star in the 70s and 80s, and he lived a rock star lifestyle. He was an alcoholic till I was just coming into high school, and life wasn't always, he wasn't always the incredible man that he is now. God's got a hold of him and done a lot of work in my dad to make him incredible. The person that he still is our biggest supporter. They are just really great people. We're going to miss them a lot as well. This is one of those moments where you realize that what I have isn't enough because I need more than I have. This happens to us kind of all the time, especially me when it comes to my relationship with God. I just am in life. Quite often I'm like, I don't think I have what it takes here. Whether Christina gets sick and I just want to see her better, but I don't have what it takes here. We kind of are very often run into the limitations of what it is that we can do. And we're forced to turn somewhere else. Because it would have been months before I would have been able to even think about starting to fix that car, get a new car, whatever. I was at the end of what I was able to do. My ability had come to an end. And that's where God, the Father, steps in. So the filter I want to talk about today is our Father filter. And my original sermon that I had prepared had all of these different ways that we had been given fathers on planet Earth, and that we let that color then how we look at God the Father, good and bad. So some of us, like me, have been blessed with really, really great dads, but even my dad on his best day doesn't really all that accurately portray the goodness, the Father heart of God. I mean, he does, but it's weak and it's broken, it's a shadow. But God is so much better. So that was my plan. I was going to show you all but rather than doing a lot of comparing and contrasting, I just want to like paint a picture of God, and so we can see how weak the filters make it all look, and you guys can pick out in yourselves, maybe my dad wasn't like that, but God is. And I know that this is a topic that can be very heavy for some of us, and very but this is also a place where God can unlock your heart in a way you didn't know was possible. And that's what I want us to give ourselves to this morning in the little bit of time we have left here, just to open our hearts and just say, God, if this is true, I want to experience all of it. Because I know it won't be long for any of us before we get to that next moment of realization where I need a father. I need a father. God, I ask today that you would help us open our eyes, help us to see you more clearly and who you are. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I want to read out of Luke 15. I'm going to read the whole story, and then we'll talk about it. I'm going to actually read a lot of things to you today, so I hope you brought your listening ears. So we can pull up Luke 15, 11 to 32. That was weird. To illustrate this point further, Jesus told them the story. A man had two sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land, and there he wasted all of his money in wild living. Somebody say wild living. Some translations say prodigal living. This says wild living. And about the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. Isn't that how it always works, though? Your money runs out, and the famine comes. That's how it works. Anyways, that's when you need to add a few. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him to the fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding to the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything, including the pigs wouldn't share. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, say a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and am no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to the servants, Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring on his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we've been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. For this son of mine was dead and now returned to life. He was lost and now he is found. So the party began. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house. And he asked one of the servants what was going on. Your brother is back, he was told, and your father has killed the fattened calf we are celebrating because of his safe return. The older brother was angry and wouldn't go in. His father came out and begged him. But he replied, All these years I've slaved for you. Say slaved. And never once refused to do a single thing you told me to do. And in all that time, you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when a son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf. His father said to him, Look, dear son, you've always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he's found. Something struck me as I read this, preparing this week, that hasn't struck me before. Maybe not in this way. Maybe I knew this once and the Lord was just like, whatever, I don't know. It was new to me. Both sons were very surprised at their father's reaction. They grew up with this guy. Certainly they had seen him do business. Certainly they'd done wrong things and he'd forgiven them. Certainly they grew up with this father, right? So they're this isn't like they don't know what he's like. They know what he's like as much as anybody does. But they were both surprised at about how he reacted. And to be honest, and to be fair, when I was in Kansas City waiting for my car to get fixed, I wasn't expecting my dad to fix the whole thing. I was expecting him to say, maybe at best, I was hoping that he would borrow me some money so I could get it all figured out, and then I could pay him back. I thought this is gonna be hard for me. I'm gonna have to work extra hours while I'm going to school and get this whole thing. But I'm gonna get there and get it done. But he just fixed it. And I was a little surprised. And as I thought about these sons, and I was thinking about, this is when the story came to my mind, as I was thinking about these sons, and I was like, why would they even be surprised? They did not even know him? And I was like, wow, actually, I've literally been there. And because sometimes I think it's helpful for us to get to a place where we think I knew my dad was kind and generous, but even this place may be too far. And what we learn from this story is that with God, there's no step too far. There literally is not a step too far with God, where his heart for you as a father to see you redeemed ends. It doesn't end. I have in my notes, it says, surprise, he's good. Sometimes we approach God and we're we don't think that. Surprise, he's good. We have a fundamental misunderstanding the character of God. When we're preparing a confession, God is preparing a comeback. See, the son along the way, he's like getting the speech ready. And I don't know about you guys, but this is my game. I'm the best at this. I prepare every time I have a hard conversation. I've done it 1,000,000 times. I'm weird about it. I'm working on it. But the son was doing that. He had the whole speech prepared. Can you just imagine this long walk home? He probably like rented like a camel limo on the way out. Like when you get to Vegas, it's like you get in and then you lose all your money and you're like, I'm just trying to find enough money for an Uber. I've actually never been to Vegas. I would assume from the movies that's what that's like. Because movies, reality, tough to tell. But this long walk home to his father's house, he had nothing else to think about. Literally nothing else to think about except for what he's going to say to his father. And he came up with, I've sinned against you in heaven. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Just repeating it. And as he was getting ready for this, his father's just waiting for him. While the son is a far way off, the father is watching, waiting, and when he's a far way off, the father understands it and runs out. This is the God we have. This is the response. So while he's preparing and he's really, really worried about the way he's going to be received, the father's already past that. And he's prepared for him to come back into the family and be do you see how this is very different than what the son expected? And I think oftentimes very different than what we expect when we think about God. And I'm not saying only when we mess up, but just generally on a day-to-day basis, as we approach God, do we believe that he has good things for us? And then as we are preparing our confessions, do we believe that he's preparing a comeback? That's good preaching. I don't even care. You guys can just keep staring at me like that. That's fine. I'm going to get pumped up anyways. I'll put it on Twitter later. Maybe I'll get some love. Which kind of asks the question then, why is it pulling teeth to get Christians to spend time with a God like this? Even myself, as I was I get up in the morning and I'm I got 9 things to check on my iPhone first, and then I got to make coffee, all hopefully before Christina gets home from her walk with the dog, because if she gets home before I start making the coffee, I feel so guilty. Because she got up, she got the dog out for a walk, and I'm literally still in bed, and it's getting cold out, and then I hear the door open, I'm crap! Shoot! Anyways, and then just life kind of happens, and we get ready for it. She leaves the house, and then why is it hard for us? I think because we don't understand how good God is. I think we don't understand who it is we're approaching. 1, his majesty, but 2 is openness in his heart for us. He wants to be with you, not because whatever. He wants to be with you. This is the God we serve. He wants to be with you. And we've made it such a weird duty to spend time with God that we can't understand. I don't know, we can't get past it, that it's we're just spending a time with a Father who's very, very interested in us. He loves us very, very much. He just desires to be with us. And it reminds me a little bit of when I was in 4th grade, and I stopped letting my mom hug me in public. I was and it didn't last long for me. It lasted longer for my other brother. But I was just it's not cool. I want to, Dad's not cool. Mom's not cool, Dad doesn't get it. Whatever, but it's so far from the truth. Because I'm now at this point in my life where I'm my dad is so cool. And I love my mom. I love to I like everyone to know how much I love my mom. I love it. It's good. They're like way cooler than I could ever hope to be. But we go through this phase where they're just like, they're not that cool, just not. It's not cool, And so we're just kind of like, we don't, in our minds, want to be, Dad doesn't have anything to show me, especially as we get to like teenage years. Like, Dad has nothing for me. He's like so old. He's like, he doesn't know anything. My mom tries to take me shopping to buy clothes. It's like, stop. They don't know anything. So I'm going to be independent and do it my way because I understand. See, when we don't rely on God, when we don't turn to God, we don't like come to be with God, what we're saying is like, I got it. I know better. When there's so much I could have learned. And there's so much we can learn if we would just access God, because what we're saying, like, we don't mean it to come off this way, but the motivation behind, like, I'm not going to spend time with God, I'm just going to, like, live as a Christian because I got this, is like, we figured it out actually better than him. Because people that have given me total access to their lives and are better at things than I am, they get a lot of phone calls. A lot of texts. I have a friend, John, who is very good at graphic design. Josh did this one. Josh is also very good at graphic design. But I don't, I basically, anytime I design anything, I like send it to John so he can fix it. Or I ask him about it. And I'm like, what do you think about it? So like, because he's giving me access to him and he's better than me, I get there. Do you know what I mean? But because with God, we don't do that because I think somewhere inside of us, we're like, I've got it figured out. What do I need God for? You know what I mean? I'm going to keep cooking because I got a lot more to cover. But I'm going to skip that. I'll make a blog post later or something. Jesus came to reveal the Father to us. It's one of the things that through the life of Jesus we see. And in Colossians it says he's the fullness of the Godhead bodily, that there's no way to the Father except through the Son. One of the things that Jesus came to do was open up the door so we could be back in relationship with the Father. But here's the thing that's really interesting about that, and the way that kind of starts to affect us, is that we kind of see Jesus as the one who came to like shield us from the wrath of the Father. And so like we're scared of the Father in like this place in our hearts where we're like, I don't want, it's like that's hard because Jesus came and he took on the wrath of God for our sin. And he took that. And so we see that it's like, thanks for getting in the way there, Jesus. And so we have this like, I really want to hang out with Jesus, but this whole Father guy is really kind of terrifying to me. And so I don't want anything to do with that. And that's not good. Because what Jesus came to do is to open that relationship back up. So now there's nothing between us, the Father and me, the Father and you. Let's not get this confused. Let's not like run to Jesus but hide from the Father. Because Jesus is like, I ran to you so I could open the door up for you to like return to the Father. Because we generally assign the wrath of God to the Father in the Trinity, we hide from the very part of God that can unlock our hearts the most. So when we think about the Trinity, we've got the Holy Spirit who kind of lives in me, says some stuff, and then does really like crazy things. And then we have the Son who loves us, died for us, and he preaches to, he's like our friend, like almost like buddy, like Jesus is a friend of mine, right? And then we have the Father who's kind of big and scary, and he's the one with all the wrath. When the truth is, all parts of God have all attributes equally. So the wrath of God exists in Jesus to the same degree it exists in the Father. That's the truth. We don't often relate like that, but that's what's true. So the wrath of God actually exists in the Holy Spirit and in Jesus and in the Father all equally. It all exists all at once. Because if it was ever limited, that would mean that it's bad to a degree, and God is always good all the time. So nothing is limited in God. Everything God is, he is unlimited. His love, unlimited. His justice, unlimited. Mercy, unlimited. Everything God is in all parts, all the time at once. That's God. But because in our minds we try to like figure it out, we're like, okay, wrath, that goes to father, so I don't want anything to do with father. It's a little bit like when you're being parented, you're like, mom spankings, not real wrath. We can just be real honest. I got plenty of mom spankings, and those were a little bit like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take a cookie. It'll just be a mom spanking. I can deal. But like, I got one dad spanking. I bit my brother real hard on the arm. I got one dad spanking, and I never bartered again. I was never like, maybe that's worth a dad spanking. There's nothing worth a dad spanking in my house growing up. But the reality is this, that like, that punishment, no matter where it like comes from, it comes from both parents equally. Like, my mom wasn't like, no, not the dad spanking. I'll give him 2 mom spankings. I'm like, yeah, that. Give me that. I'm just thinking about all the times that I got close to a dad spanking and then just stopped cold. It took one. And to be honest, it probably wasn't even all that hard. It's just he was bigger than I am now by about 25 pounds, but not taller, just stronger. And so that's kind of a terrifying figure when you're 5. Anyways, it worked, I guess. My little brother got a lot of them, though. My older brother got a couple. I got one. My little brother just got a lot of them. Anyways, whatever. So I want to just kind of like de-scare us from the Father today and say, like, no, he's good. No, his heart is for you. No, his wrath has been fully poured out on Jesus for your account. There is no wrath left that God the Father has for you when we come into Christ Jesus. There's literally none left. So as he looks at you, he sees the righteousness of his Son. That's how we relate to the Father. So we don't have to like worry. Is there anything? Because there's not. Totally free. I'll finish with this, I guess. No, I have 2 things left to do. Is it okay if I go just a little bit over time today? It's going to be. Packer game's not till 7. We're fine. If anybody has an issue, Michelle said that, but I'm listening to her. All right. I'm reading this book. It's by David Platt. On page 99, 97, something really cool happens. He's a pastor in Texas, and he adopted a son from Kazakhstan, and they named him Caleb, which means that he's got impeccable taste in naming things. And so it's kind of long. It's like 2.5 pages, but I want to read it to you because it really illustrates a point that I don't know how to make better than he did. He said, when we returned home from Kazakhstan with Caleb, we quickly learned that people say the strangest things when they see you with a child who is clearly of another ethnicity. He's so cute, people remark. Do you have any children of your own? Go ahead and mark that down as a phrase number 1 to never say to a parent who has adopted a child. Every time we're asked this, we have an irresistible urge to say, come in real close because we have a secret to share. He's ours. People also look at Caleb, realize he's adopted, and ask, have you met his real mother? My response to that one is quick and clear. Well, yes, I'm actually married to her. Her name is Heather. They'll respond, well, you know what I mean, to which I respond, yes, and you know what I mean. My precious wife is not his fake mother. She's bona fide, real. Others assume Caleb doesn't know much about his family or cultural background, so they ask Heather and me if we're going to be intentional in teaching him about his family or cultural heritage. We tell them, absolutely. In fact, we've already begun. It may actually surprise you that Caleb knows a lot about his family background. He knows all about his granddad, who unfortunately he never had the opportunity to meet because my dad died before Caleb was adopted. But Caleb has plenty of pictures, he's heard plenty of stories, and one of his favorite videos to watch has been the grandpa video. In addition, he knows all about his other granddad, his 2 grandmas, his cousins, his uncles, aunts, great-aunts, and great-uncles, and has more family heritage than he knows what to do with. Caleb also has learned about his cultural heritage. He's read books like Good Night Moon and Mr. Brown Can Moo, Can You? He runs around the house saying, run, run, fast as you can. You can't catch me, I'm the... If you can finish that statement, it just may be that you have the same cultural heritage. Caleb is eating his culture's food: barbecue, mac and cheese, watermelon, and birthday cake. He lives in Alabama. He even knows the music of his culture. He may not be able to recognize the Kazakh national anthem, but he loves Sweet Home, Alabama. You see, Caleb is our son. He's not an alien or stranger in our family. He's not an alien or stranger in our family. He's not somewhat Platt, partly Platt, or kind of Platt. He's fully Platt with all the things that a Platt involves, for better, for worse. These kinds of questions and comments from well-meaning people are not just potential annoyances to parents who have adopted. And this is the part I highlighted. They are symptoms of something much deeper, for they reflect how little we understand about what it means to be adopted into a family. And if we don't understand the concept of adoption at its core, how can we realize the ramifications of what it means to become a child in the family of God? That's some of the best pen on paper I've read in a long time. And you see, we've been adopted into the family of God. And in the story, the one son actually shows that even though he was born into that family, he doesn't understand what it means to be a son. Like, I'm not worthy to be your son, let me be a slave, is the speech he prepares. And isn't that crazy? Like, I'm not worthy to be your son. Isn't that crazy? Because the son, like, you didn't get to pick that you were a son. You don't get to pick when you're not a son. You're the son. You're part of the family. I didn't get to pick my parents. We don't get to pick our children. I mean, David and Heather did. And God picked us. Our perception is that God is like wishy-washy about our adoption, as if it were still in the process and hasn't yet signed the papers. We have the guarantee of our adoption living in our spirit. He's the third person of the Trinity. The fact that we have the Holy Spirit is proof positive that God finalized the adoption. With Christ on Calvary, he finalized our adoption. We come to him. We aren't partly sons. We're not partly Jesus' kingdom. We're not something related to God. We're 100% sold out. He is for us. He has bought us and paid for us, rubber stamped, approved. We're in the family. You can't stop. You can't do that. That's true. That's where we are. That's who we are. That's how we sit before God. The Father makes his case to both of his sons to win their hearts. And in doing so, shows us two very important sides of God the Father. To the younger son, who understood that the Father had enough resource and that the resource was open, he needed to show him the real treasure isn't in heaven, but it is in himself. So this younger son understood that the treasury of his father was wide open. He could do with it whatever he wanted. So he did. But what he learned through the process in coming back is that the best that his father had wasn't his stuff. It was himself. And so when we approach God, let's not approach God like, what do you have for me? Because anything he could give you is basically worthless compared to giving you himself. And he desires to be known by you, to be in a relationship with you. He desires his heart to connect to your heart. And he has plenty to give you, but he doesn't just pour it out on us all willy-nilly, because he doesn't want us to get obsessed with the stuff. He wants us to get obsessed with himself. Because there's way more value in him than anything else he could give us. And he knows that for us. And the younger son learned that. So as the younger son took his place as son for the second time, he knew who his father was. And that was way more important than knowing what his inheritance was. To the older son, he needed to show that approval and access don't come from doing a good job, but from being a son. Do you remember when the son said, I have slaved for you? Doesn't that tell the whole story of this guy's life? I have slaved for you. And God says, I'm not interested in slaves. I want sons. We're slaves to sin. The younger son, slave to sin, set free to be a son. The older son, slave to his own righteousness. Never going to be able to be enough to finally access the blessing that he hopes to get from the Father, not knowing the whole while it was his. And I would hate to be in either camp, sitting in this room today, slave to sin, like not available, not able to access the love of this Father that can change my life completely. I'd hate to sit there. But I would also hate to sit on this other side, slave to my Father in a way he never intended, working, all the while saying, where's, like in my heart, never asking God, like, where is my stuff? Where's the party for me? Where's this for me? Why don't I get this? Why don't I get that? All this accusation towards a Father, and it's all in his own mind. It's all this stuff. Because had he come to his Father and been like, hey, can I have a chicken? Be like, slay the fatted calf. You're my son. You do with my stuff what you want. It's yours. All I have is yours. I don't want to be a slave to either one. I want to be a son. And that's what Jesus came to allow us to be. So back from the far off country, living for ourselves, set free to be a son and to exist in the family. You see how the son didn't come back and go right to work? He came back and got a relationship. Not that there's not work that has to be done. That work will happen. But he's not going to be slave to it. He's not going to be slave to it. There's no access or approval from God in a foreign land. You don't get a relationship with God when you're gone. But there also is no access or approval at home when we're slaves to a Father we've created that is fickle. It's so important to understand God the Father as he is, not as we somehow perceive him, not through these filters of you'll never be good enough, of you got to work harder, of you've got wrath coming, don't step wrong. When we have those filters and we see it wrong, we'll never be able to enjoy what God enabled us to have. Like your highest function as a human being, the thing you were created to do, there's a lot of things. The number one thing you were created to function for was to be in a relationship with God. And whether you're either son, you'll miss it if you see him wrong. So I don't want us to be surprised by a good God. I don't want us to be surprised by a happy Father. Can we stand up? I never want to be surprised by the God that's excited to see me or quick to forgive me or that just has presents for me, who loves me, gives me gifts, not so I have more gifts, but so I understand his heart. That's freaking cool, man. God, we love you so much. I pray today you would just begin to tear down the wrong images of God. Would you rip the filters out of our mind that say we should be afraid of you, God? We never want to live in fear of you. That say that you're not good, that you're waiting for us, Lord. We don't want to be a slave to you, to all of this work. We know you've paid for us. God, give us grace to see it. Give us grace to see you rightly, God. And if there's a person in this room who's never understood your love, God, I pray that right now you would just shoot that through them, that your heart would pour out love for them, that they would see and recognize you as the good Father you are. In Jesus' name, amen.